I always thought she looked through me, not at me. That kind of indifference hurts more than cruelty. At least cruelty means you exist. Her name was Lara. Lived 3 doors down. Late 40s, maybe. The kind of beautiful that felt untouchable. Not loud beautiful. Not trying. Just there. Confident. Composed. Like her life had been folded and ironed flat. While mine was still wrinkled and stained with college ramen and late rent. We never really spoke. Not more than a hello in the hall, or a polite nod when we passed outside. She kept to herself. Didn't smile much. Eyes always somewhere else. So when I accidentally knocked her groceries over in the lobby last month, I expected maybe a thank you. Or a scolding. Instead, she just said, "Be more careful next time." No smile. No eye contact. Just walked away. I thought she hated me after that. Which made it even weirder when she started noticing things. Like the time I came home soaking wet from the rain and she left a spare umbrella outside my door the next morning. No note. Or when she asked, out of nowhere, if my window AC was still broken, even though I'd never mentioned it out loud. That confused me. Then last week, I saw her struggling with her car. Parked halfway into the curb, hood up, her hair in her face. I offered to help. She hesitated like she wanted to say no, then just stepped aside and let me look. I'm not a mechanic. I Googled half of it. But we fixed it. She didn't thank me. She just said, "You should wash your hands. You've got oil on your face." Then handed me a tissue, the kind that smells faintly like rosewater. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I told myself I was imagining it. The softness in her voice. The way she didn't quite look away when I caught her eyes. I told myself she was just being polite, or tired, or distracted. But the thing is, sometimes the smallest things hit the deepest. Like how she never smiled at anyone, except that one half smile when I made a dumb joke about her engine. Or how her fingers lingered just a second too long when she handed me her keys. I was trying to forget it, let it go, move on. Until tonight. It was late, past midnight. I was lying on the couch, half asleep, when someone knocked. 3 short knocks. Hesitant. I opened the door, and there she was. Lara. No makeup. Hair pulled back messily. Eyes red. Breathing uneven. A long sweater hanging over her like she'd thrown it on without thinking. She looked at me, actually looked at me, for the first time. And she said, voice cracking, I didn't know where else to go. I stood there frozen. My heart was thudding so hard it made my vision shake. I didn't know what had happened, or why she was crying, or why she chose me. But the second she stepped inside, her fingers brushed mine, just lightly, and she didn't pull away. She didn't say why she was crying. I didn't ask. I just stepped aside and let her walk in. My apartment was a mess. Hoodie on the floor, half-eaten sandwich on the counter. Some movie paused on mute. None of it mattered. She didn't sit. Just stood near the window, arms crossed, staring out like she wasn't even sure she was really here. Like her body had made the decision and her mind was still catching up. I tried to act normal. Poured her some water. Put on the kettle even though I didn't know if she drank tea. My hands were clumsy, too aware of themselves. She said quietly, "He left this morning." I froze. Then she added, like she owed me context, "My fiancé." Well, that word, fiancé, hit harder than I expected. I don't know why I thought someone like her would be alone. I nodded like I understood, like I wasn't suddenly hyper-aware of everything. The way her fingers tightened around the glass, the tiny crack in her voice, the scent of vanilla and something warmer that I'd only noticed this close. "I'm sorry," I said. She shrugged. "You shouldn't be. It was coming for a while." I sat on the edge of the armrest. My heart felt like it was crawling up my throat. She really turned, and looked at me. "You probably think I'm ridiculous, showing up here like this." "No," I said too quickly. "No, I don't." Silence. Then she laughed, quietly, with no real humor in it. "You're sweet. You always have been." That word, always, did something strange to my stomach. I didn't know she noticed me. Not really. And now she was here. In my space. In my hoodie scent and leftover sandwich and stupid paused movie. And she was real. Not distant, not polished, but undone. I didn't know if I was allowed to feel what I felt. She was older. She'd lived more. She had a whole ex-fiancé in the past tense. And me? I was just the guy with no plans and too many feelings, who once dropped her groceries and couldn't stop thinking about her since. But then she sat down beside me. Close. Her knee brushed mine. And she whispered, "Can I stay for a while?" I nodded. Of course I nodded. But it was more than that. She looked down at my hand on the armrest. Fingers slightly curled, useless, and she reached over and rested hers on top of mine. Light, barely touching. I think I stopped breathing. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I didn't trust what might come out. So I said nothing. And her thumb moved, just once, against my skin. She stayed. Not just for a few minutes, hours. The tea went cold. The movie never resumed. We didn't even pretend to distract ourselves. She just sat there, beside me, like the space between us had never been there. At one point, she pulled her knees up onto the couch and leaned her head back. Eyes closed. I watched the way her throat moved when she swallowed. The way the tension in her jaw softened. Felt like trespassing. But she hadn't told me to look away. She said, after a long silence, "You ever feel like you got good at pretending you're fine?" I hesitated. "Yeah. Sometimes I pretend so well I forget I'm not." She looked at me again then, and her eyes, they weren't cold like before. They were tired, open, like she saw something in me she didn't want to admit she recognized. She shifted closer. "I used to think you didn't like me," I said, before I could stop myself. "After the groceries thing." Her mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "I didn't mean to come off that way." "You kind of did." She laughed. Not loudly, but it cracked something between us. "I noticed you," she said suddenly, her voice low. "More than I should have." I felt that line in my spine. The silence after was louder than anything we'd said. Then buzz. Her phone lit up on the table. A name flashed across it. Dean Work. She stared at it. Didn't move. I pretended not to notice. The call ended. The silence returned. And somehow that tiny interruption made everything heavier. Realer. She turned to me, slower this time. "I think I came here tonight because I wanted to feel something honest." Her fingers were on her lap, tightening around each other. I saw a vein at her wrist pulsing. I should have pulled back. I told myself I would. But instead, I reached out and touched her hand. Light, just enough to make her look up. "This feels honest," I said quietly. She didn't answer, but she didn't let go either. I could feel her breathing change. Her lips parted like she might say something, and then she leaned in, not fully, just close enough for me to smell the faint sweetness of her skin. Her hair, whatever perfume lingered from earlier that day. I thought, this is it. We're about to ruin everything. But before anything could happen, knock, knock, knock. Loud. At my door. She jumped slightly. We both froze. I stood slowly, my heart in my throat. She looked terrified. Or maybe just caught. I didn't move toward the door. She whispered, "Don't answer." I didn't answer the door. Whoever it was knocked twice more, firm, impatient, then left. The hallway fell silent again. But something had shifted. Lara pulled her hand back the moment the sound faded. She stood, smoothing her sweater, avoiding my eyes. That earlier softness gone. She looked like she was rebuilding the walls brick by brick. Fast. "I shouldn't have come," she said, more to herself than me. I stood a little too quickly. "You don't have to pretend this didn't mean anything." She flinched. "Don't." I blinked. "Don't what?" She looked up then. And this time, there was nothing guarded in her expression. Just raw, honest panic. Don't make this real. Those 4 words punched a hole through my chest. Why not? I asked, quieter now. Why are we pretending it's not already real? She let out a breath, shaky and uneven. Because you're 23. Because I'm a mess. Because I got out of something I wasted years on and I don't know who I am without him yet. Because if I let this happen... Her voice cracked. I won't be able to stop. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to step toward her. The other part didn't trust what might happen if I did. So I stayed where I was. And I said the one thing I hadn't let myself say until now. I think about you. All the time. Her lips parted, shocked. Or maybe she wasn't shocked. Maybe she'd just been trying to pretend. She whispered, "You shouldn't." But I do. I took a step closer. Not just because of tonight. It started before that. You don't even realize how you walk into a room and make everything quieter. Or how I've memorized the way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're overwhelmed. She looked away, jaw tight. I kept going. I thought you hated me, but I still found excuses to pass your apartment. Just to maybe run into you. That's pathetic, I know, but it's not, she said, cutting me off, finally meeting my gaze. It's not pathetic. I swallowed. Her eyes were glassy. She stepped forward. We were close now, too close for this to be anything but what it was. I didn't hate you, she said. I hated how much I noticed you. And then, silence. No more excuses. No more polite nods. No more pretending this was just 2 neighbors, or a broken engagement, or a lonely night. Just her. Just me. And everything in between, trembling. She looked at me like she was waiting. And I asked, voice low, dangerous. She didn't answer my question right away. She just looked at me. Really looked. Like she was holding something in her mouth she wasn't sure she should swallow or spit out. I waited, every second feeling like it was dragging me closer to a cliff I couldn't see over. Then, softly, I've been here before. I frowned. What do you mean? She turned away, paced toward the window, arms wrapped around herself like a shield. Your apartment. This building. Years ago. I didn't move. I barely breathed. She went on, slower now, as if dragging the truth out from somewhere she'd locked it. My sister used to live here, right upstairs, before she moved to Texas. She turned toward me, eyes steady. You were 17. You came to the door once, borrowed sugar or something. I was visiting. You were wearing that awful red hoodie. My mouth went dry. I remembered that day, not clearly, but in pieces. I'd been flustered. She'd answered the door barefoot, with a towel on her head, and smiled politely before calling her sister. I'd forgotten it, or convinced myself I had. You remember that? I asked. She nodded, barely. You looked at me like I was magic. I felt my chest tighten. And I felt it, she said. Even then, for a second. And it scared me. I didn't know whether to feel exposed or seen. Maybe both. She stepped closer, words trembling. I've been carrying this tension for longer than I want to admit. Every time I saw you after I moved in, every time you looked at me like that, I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it. But you weren't. She shook her head slowly. No, I wasn't. Before I could speak, her phone lit up again on the table. Another message. She didn't reach for it, but I did. I glanced. Dean, can we talk? I'm outside. I saw your car. My blood turned cold. I held the phone up wordlessly. She looked, and her face went pale. I thought he'd gone. You told me he left. He did. Her voice broke. I didn't think he'd come back tonight. I stared at her. Everything we'd shared in the last few hours slammed against the reality knocking on my front door. He's outside, I asked. She nodded, trembling now. I'm sorry. I didn't come here to mess things up for you. I didn't know where else felt safe. And suddenly it clicked. That wasn't just panic in her eyes when she arrived. It was fear. She hadn't just shown up crying. She'd shown up running. I stepped forward, my voice low but steady. "Do you want me to let him in?" She looked at me, and for the first time tonight, I saw real fear crack beneath her composure. "No," she whispered. "Please, just don't open that door." I didn't move toward the door. I didn't ask her again. I just turned off the light in the living room so the outside couldn't see in, and sat down next to her in the dark. She was hugging her knees now, hair falling around her face, like she wanted to disappear. I didn't touch her. I didn't try to fix it. I just sat there, close enough to be a choice, far enough not to be a mistake. And I said, "You don't have to explain. Not tonight." She didn't say anything for a long time, just breathed slow, shaky breaths. I could hear the wind outside, the occasional car, and something heavier between us. Then finally, "He never hit me." "Not exactly, but you can hurt someone in other ways. He was good at that." I closed my eyes, just for a second. Let that sink in. She continued, voice barely above a whisper. "He made me feel small, like I had to earn the right to be loved. Like being seen was a weakness." She looked over at me. Her eyes were wet, but clear. "But then you—" She stopped, shook her head. "I don't know why you make me feel safe. I barely know you. I'm not supposed to want this. Not with you." My throat tightened. "Why not?" "I'm too old for you," she said. "I've seen too much. I've already messed up so many things. I don't want to ruin this too." I turned toward her then. No distance now. No line left uncrossed. "You didn't ruin anything." She laughed softly, but it cracked. "I showed up crying on your doorstep like a teenage drama, and then refused to explain. That's kind of the definition of ruining things." "You showed up," I said. "That's all that matters to me." She stared at me like she didn't know what to do with that truth, like no one had said something that simple to her in a long time. "I'm not asking for forever," I said carefully. "I'm not asking for anything you can't give." She blinked, slow, deliberate. "I'm just asking," I added, "for right now, for tonight, for something real between us. No pretending." Silence stretched between us. And then, slowly, she reached out and rested her hand on my cheek. Her thumb brushed the corner of my mouth like she was trying to memorize something fragile. She whispered, "Okay." We didn't kiss. We didn't undress pain with our bodies or fix broken things with heat. We just stayed there, forehead to forehead, breathing the same air, holding still in a world that hadn't been kind to either of us. And for the first time, I felt like maybe we could belong to something, even if it was only this moment. Lara didn't leave that night. She stayed until morning, not in my bed, not in any way the world might assume. We just existed next to each other. She slept curled up beneath the blanket I gave her on the couch, and I stayed awake most of the night, just listening. To her breath, to the silence, to whatever part of me finally felt still. When the sun started pushing through the blinds, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." I didn't ask what for. I think we both knew it wasn't just about the couch. She left before the city was awake. Slipped out quietly, like it had all been a dream she didn't want to ruin by staying too long. But she looked back before she closed the door, and that look, it said she would come back. And she did. Not right away. Not with any big romantic gesture or dramatic kiss. Just small things. A knock here. A coffee left on my doorstep. A text about a book I mentioned once. Slowly, piece by piece, she returned. And so did I to myself. To the version of me that believed something real was still possible, even if it didn't come the way I expected. We didn't rush it. There was too much in the air between us. Age, fear, past scars, unspoken shame. But we let it unfold. With patience. With softness. With truth. That's what changed the most. We stopped hiding. Lara stopped pretending she didn't need anyone. I stopped pretending I didn't need her. Eventually, I met her in the hallway again. Same lobby, same spot where I dropped her groceries all those months ago. But this time I didn't fumble. I just looked at her and said, "So, dinner at mine tonight?" She smiled. One of those quiet, knowing smiles that carry a whole life behind them. And she said, "You're finally asking properly." I guess the lesson is, sometimes the people who seem cold aren't cold at all. Sometimes they're just carrying things too heavy to hold and smile at the same time. Sometimes they've been made to feel too visible in all the wrong ways, or invisible in all the right ones. But when someone sees you, not just the surface, not just the polite version, and still stays, that's something worth holding on to, even if it breaks a few rules, even if the world doesn't understand it. Because love doesn't always come in clean, perfect packages. Sometimes, it shows up crying on your doorstep in the middle of the night, and everything after that is just deciding whether you'll open the door.